Hello, everybody. Here is my latest project. I got this from my stepdaughter. She is going to be having a baby soon with her husband, and she asked if I wouldn't mind refurbishing this 5-drawer dresser that used to belong to her husband. So this is at least 25 years old, and here are some before shots. The biggest thing about this dresser was that it was just old and a little bit needed to be cleaned up a little bit, and 3 out of the 5 drawers fell apart, and one of the drawers had been glued together, so I had to kind of glue it a little bit more so the bottom of the drawer would stop falling out. And all in all, my stepdaughter was very happy with the whole thing, so I'm happy. You can see here that I am sanding the top, and I first started, I think, with about 100 grit sandpaper, then 120, and then I think 220. And the top of this dresser is just plywood, and I actually think it looks really pretty. I think it's a maple, maybe, plywood, but oh, okay, I think it's beautiful. This dresser has probably 3 types of wood. There's plywood, I think there's pine, I think there's cedar, and maybe some fir. So I have no idea, but that's what it looks like to me. I cut a piece off and it smelled like cedar, so who knows. So this project kind of made me think of perceptions, because my perception of this dresser was, wouldn't it look great if it had a darker stain on it? But that's not what my stepdaughter wanted. She just wanted it to look natural, the way wood should look, or at least this would. And I messaged her and gave her photos of it without being waxed yet, and she said, looks great. So if you don't like the way it looks at the very end, that's okay. That's your perception. What made me start thinking about perception is 2 nights ago, I went with my sister-in-law to a welcome back to campus. She works at a university here in town, and I was sitting next to a lady who helps students. It's a teaching college, and I was talking about working overseas because she was teaching students ESL, or English as a Second Language, and we were talking about how we perceive students from different cultures, and it was really interesting. I had talked about how people overseas would often touch me, like I'd be in the bus and they would touch my hair or touch my skin because it was a different color or a different texture, and I thought it was all very charming because the people who were dealing with me were usually older women or women in general. So for me, it was no big deal. And then she said, yeah, but don't you see that people here in America who that happens to, they get stared at or looked at, or their hair touched, that they live here and they didn't choose to go to a foreign country. And I said, oh, right, never entered my mind. Just because my perception of that is, I think it's charming, doesn't mean everybody thinks like me. So just like this piece of furniture, everybody has their own perception. So today, think a little bit about how you perceive things. And if you've traveled, think about how different cultures perceive things. And just because you look different, but you're from the same culture, you might perceive things differently or the same. So that's what I was thinking about for the last couple of days, about how I perceive things. Like, for example, here in the USA, I am considered, I think, morbidly obese, and that's a bad thing. When I was teaching overseas in the Middle East, oh my goodness, I was so beautiful, and students always told me, males and females, how beautiful I was. It's all about perception, and I do know that being overweight is not healthy. However, I was sick for some time and got really thin, which, sure, I looked good, but I was about to die. And so now I need to change my ways and get back to my fitness again. So today I did go to yoga for the first time and after many months. And so I am going to start becoming healthier and not be so obsessed about my weight. So eating more healthy and being more active. So doing furniture flipping and projects, it is really good because I'm standing up and I'm bending over and I'm lifting things, but I'm not doing hardcore cardio or things for longer that are harder. So I can walk for like 25,000 steps because I like to travel and my husband and I do like to walk, but that doesn't really make you thin unless you eat properly and drink properly. So inside the dresser here, there was some, I think it was crayons that had been written on the wood, so I sanded those off. I also sanded the glides of the drawers, so it'd be easier to open and close the drawers themselves. I do not believe that there was any kind of wax on the wood at all, so that's why it was a little bit hard to slide the drawers out. But I do think there was some sort of varnish on this. When I turned over the drawers, I could see little drips that I think probably came from a varnish. So maybe the oil varnish that they used kind of made it look yellower than it was. So you can see on the right hand side there's some marks there, some white marks, and also there is a little glide there made from what's the fabric called? I want to say Velcro, that's not the right word. Anyway, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So I took it off right here because in reality, when you get that fabric on a carpet, it doesn't glide very well. And that's why I normally use the plastic little glides. It's so much easier to use. Felt. Yeah, so if you put felt on fabric, it kind of makes it harder to move. If you put felt on hardwood floors, okay, I guess that's okay. But if you put those little plastic ones on there, they're easy to move on wood, and they're also easy to move on rugs or carpets. So I like the plastic a lot more. Plus the felt usually has a glue, and then sometimes the glue picks up all the hair. Oh, I can't tell you how many times have I flipped over chairs to clean, the carpets or vacuum, and it's just so many hairs. Ugh, you know what I'm talking about. I know you've seen that yourself. So here I am sanding the side of the dresser. And I did a lot of sanding on this dresser for sure. And there was a part of me that was like, yeah, if I just did a little bit longer, then maybe all of the brown parts will look more even. And so I took photos of this and sent it to my stepdaughter, and she said, no, it looks great. So I said, okay. The back of the dresser was coming off, so I did pound in the staples that were there, but later on, when it was almost finished, I realized a lot of the back was loose, so I used my own air-powered staple gun to fix that, so it was great. Yeah, I do like this sander because it does keep all of the dust away. As you can see, it's a little bit nicer looking, a little bit cleaned up. And after I use the power sander, I do use just the sandpaper with my hands so I can feel if it's all smooth. So you see me do that a lot also. There we go. Yeah. Whoever made sandpaper, I appreciate them very much. So you can see the top of the dresser is a lot better. So now I got some glue, and later on I did go buy a glue syringe, but at this point I didn't have one. So I just used a paintbrush and kind of forced it down there. And then I used 2 clamps to clamp the wood together. And I found how to use this by watching YouTube videos. I can't remember which YouTuber did it, but if one of your clamps is too small, then you can clamp one clamp onto another clamp. And so here my 2 clamps together were too small, but I have a bigger one that's metal. So I got that one, and oh my goodness, I love YouTube. It teaches me so many things. I was trying to make this so it wouldn't make any marks while it was laying down. But this dresser only had staples and nails. It had no glue and it had no screws. So when I would move it around, things started just falling off. And yeah, it made me a little bit crazy. But my neighbor, who has been a person who did this her whole life, said that's very normal not to have glue or screws. So I was like, okay. Okay, there were screws in the knobs, keeping the knobs on. So the knobs were a really pretty wooden knob. And I thought about if I should put them on as like horizontal or make them look like diamonds. Oops, yeah, here you go. So I picked this drawer up. I think it was drawer number 2. It just fell apart because there was nothing stable to keep it, nothing keeping it together. No glue, no screws. So I took it all apart, and I only videoed me taking this one apart, but I took apart number 2, 3, and 4. All of these drawers had already been labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the inside of the drawer. So I don't know who did that, but yeah, they all had to be fixed. Drawer number 1, the bottom of the drawer kept on popping out, so I did glue the drawer back in, and I kept it overnight. So here it is all taken apart. And when it was all taken apart, it did make it a lot easier to sand. So I sanded all of the sides of the drawers, and I think that also made it a lot easier for it to slide in and out of the drawer. Yeah. So number 1 drawer, I glued the bottom in because it kept on popping out. And then drawer number 5, I believe I didn't redo the whole thing. I just redid the back part so the drawer would be, the drawer bottom would be more stable. Yeah, so I don't really know what company put this together, but it seemed a little bit dodgy to me, or a little bit odd, or not done well, but it lasted for at least 30 years, so who am I to say? Now you can see that when I am sanding this, the wood does become a lot lighter. And I literally sanded so long, and I couldn't make it perfect. So I sent some photos to my stepdaughter, and I said, is this okay with you? And she said, oh yeah, it looks great. So I didn't spend forever doing it because it was taking forever. Also, the bottom of the drawers had a white film on it, and there were a few stains. I tried taking the stains out, but I thought it's not worth to put new liners on or anything. As long as it's clean, I believe they're going to use this for baby clothes and blankets and things like that. So it's clean. Nothing will stain anything in the inside of the drawer, so that's great. I put pilot holes into the wood because there were no screws, so I'm putting screws in. If you don't use pilot holes, the wood tends to break. If you look carefully, you might see some of the wood has been raised up, and that's because when the drawers broke on me, a little bit of the staple bent back and kind of made the wood pop up a little bit, but I don't think you could see it that much. And once I sanded it, it was much better. Now, the very back drawer does not have any kind of valley or area to put the drawer bottom in. So once again, the design of this I thought was quite odd, but I fixed it, and then I used my trusty power stapler and put that all in there. Oh my gosh, I love this tool so much. Oh, power tools. The only thing about it is I wish I were stronger, because sometimes they're really heavy. So this is going through to the back, and yeah, this power tool just works so well. Yeah. So then I sanded all the little parts to make it look uniform as much as I could. You will see at the end of this video that the two drawers in the middle look a lot lighter, but then also you might see that there are some lines on the drawer, and that's because where the dressers were placed, the sun came in a certain way, and I think it was just bleached. And you can use a wood bleaching agent to make everything more uniform. But then I thought, oh my, if my stepdaughter doesn't care, I don't care. And so if I were going to sell this, it'd look a lot different. But since it was just for somebody who was happy, then perception is all about the person. So Howard Feed and Wax, I really do like how it makes the wood look, and it protects the wood from stains and things like that. So I sanded all of the 10 knobs and I tried to line them up. So the design of the wood of the knobs, I tried to make them match each other as much as I could. So here are the plastic glides that I like. So think about which kind you like. Felt is good only with hardwood floors. The plastic ones I think are better. I don't know if you have a soft wooden floor, if maybe the plastic glides might make a mark because of the weight, but that's only if you have like maybe pine or fir floors. If you have a heavy duty like oak or cherry or something else floor, it shouldn't make any lines if you move it. So I'm sanding it again, all the sides, and now here I'm testing the top drawer to make sure it goes in nicely, and then I put some Howard Feed and Wax on the glides as well to make sure it all looks nice. Dusting the inside, getting some of the weird marks off. It looks pretty clean, doesn't it? That's one of the perceptions I didn't realize, that on YouTube, the video looks so much better than in real life. So I try to make it look as realistic as possible, but up close with an iPhone or with my GoPro, I think your eyes still see more flaws than the video itself does, even though I believe YouTube is using HD and everything. It still looks a lot better on the video. So here's the color with the Howard Feed and Wax. And also it has a nice orangey smell. I like that a lot. So here the side of the wood looks more like pine, but then the side of the actual dresser looks more like fir. So I don't know. When I was sanding it, I felt like I could smell some cedar smell. I do like these knobs. I tried to match up the color so you can see like part of it was black and part of it wasn't. And of course my little GoPro is videotaping everything. You can see this is before. Look at the white, it's all cleaned up. And you can see here it all comes out nicely, but the two middle ones are a little bit lighter. No idea. You can see the lines in it. But the person who received it was very happy. You can see how I screwed in the sides of the drawers. And there's a project done with Paula. So when you do a project, just because you like it or dislike it, doesn't mean that people will have the same perceptions as you. So have a great day and think about how you perceive the world. Bye-bye.